Hi, it's Robin. There were lots of questions about the C64 after my last video, and lots of other points I didn't cover, including the VIC-20 mode, so we'll take another look at it today. As always, there will be an index in the description below, so if you want to jump ahead to the VIC-20 part or whatever, just look there. Now, I didn't get talking about the packaging much. Just like with the C64 Mini, they did a very nice job of it, very attractive, and the full size. Now, this particular box doesn't have the same nostalgic appeal to us in North America. This is a close facsimile of the UK release. This is the box that most people in North America probably remember. It's not the only one that Commodore used, but this was the box I got with my first Commodore 64 in March of 1984. It's over 35 years old, so excuse that's a bit worn out. Notice it does have a similar blue and white stripe idea going on. And the new box opens up with a nice TheC64 logo here, while the North American packaging has this iconic message: "Welcome to the world of friendly computing." And there's the back side of the North American box. I got asked, does it smell like a real C64? It's got that slightly burnt plastic smell. Here's one of my originals. I don't know, my old C64 doesn't smell all that much at all, which I guess is good. I also got asked if the keys are swappable with the real thing. I don't want to pull mine off, but YouTuber Commodore Forever, I'll put a link in the description below to his video. He shows, he actually pops off one of the keys and it's square underneath. And so, no, they don't appear to be compatible, at least not directly. Whether somebody could come up with an adapter, maybe that would work. And finally, when is this going to officially launch in North America? I don't think anybody knows for sure, but it seems reasonable to think that it would be another 3 to 4 months after the European launch, just like with the C64 Mini. So maybe we'll see it in March or April 2020. And it'd be really cool if they redid the box to match the North American box. I'll for sure buy another one if that happens. And what's the price going to be? I've heard $120 US, which seems pretty reasonable to me, but I'm not sure if that's official or not. Okay, and we'll try powering it up. I'm pressing the button. Eight-bit guy found it took about 19 seconds to boot, but I found it was closer to 16. So, I don't know why his is slower, but I should point out that once it's booted, for the first time for your session, you can go in and change like computer models if I want to switch. And it's basically instant to switch between modes or to restart the computer. So that 16 seconds of boot time only applies the first time you power it up each day, but each session. I got asked if accessories like this, the incredible music keyboard, if this works. Okay, so we'll try this out here. Note that it's just a physical overlay. All it does is depress the keys on the keyboard underneath. There's nothing electronic going on here. It's kind of a funny accessory. Query. And we'll just bring up the menu here. It's called Cynthcart, and we'll launch that with B. Okay, press C. So that seems to work pretty good. It wiggles a little bit. Yeah, actually it wiggles quite a bit on my real C64 too. Probably want to put some, blue tack or something on there if you're actually going to try and seriously use this. And so it's Cynthcart by PAL. It's a free download, or you can buy it on cartridge. I have a copy of that. Paul's a neat guy. At one time he was writing the Homestar Runner RPG for the Atari 2600. Never got finished, but it was pretty amazing. I was asked if that RU hack I showed last episode could be saved as a save state. Yes, it can. Let's go here, launch the snapshot, which enables that RU hack. And then we can also attach the Super Snapshot cartridge. Then we can attach the C64 temp disk and load Turbo Macro Pro. This isn't necessary for the save state, but like say you wanted to have your assembler all set here. Here it is. And then you just go into save load state. Well, I've already got one there, but here we can go choose another slot. And then pressing A, that puts it on disk. And now, even if we reset the computer, we can go into save load state and then press C to pull that from the disk. And now we're back in. And just to prove it works again. Yeah, there it is. Now I was asked if that RU hack also works with GEOS, and yes it does. So again, I'll just do snapshot 1. Now the RU is enabled, and media access, I've got a disk here called GEOS Plane, or I'll put a link to it in the description below. I believe this is legal now, for those of you concerned about that, and we'll launch it. Now up in the top right corner, you see that little disk icon? That is enabled by adding _AD to the file name. And that's for accurate disk emulation, and GEOS and other programs require that. They actually have a fast load protocol that has to be exactly emulated on the disk drive, which has its own computer in it. It does take a while to start, just like the real thing. You can move the mouse pointer around with the joystick. If we go into this configure program, you can see down here that it's found the RAM expansion. Well, I guess maybe when I was messing around I disabled the DMA mode. But yeah, it finds the RAM expansion, and we'll save that. And we'll exit out. And now it is accelerated because of the RU being enabled. Go in here, shortcuts. So there it is. I don't think I'd actually want to use it on here, but it's fun that it works. Okay, people asked about mouse emulation. Unfortunately, that seems to be a no. I'll plug it in over here. And it does get powered. I didn't mention that when you first boot up GEOS, it actually expects a mouse, so you press Commodore, or in this case the C64, and I. And this is where you could choose a 1351 mouse. So we'll do that. Alright, but no go. Oh well. So that'd be cool if they include mouse support in a future firmware update. I don't know if that'd be easy or not. People asked if the various bugs and so on that the Commodore 64 has. I did an episode about that a while ago. Changed the cursor color to white so it's a little more visible. And we'll just try a few of those, like Rem Shift L. If you list that, you get a syntax error during a listing of a program. How about this one? If you print two quotes ±0, what will it do? It actually crashes. Locks right up. Nice one, Commodore Basic. can recover with stop restore though, that works. After stop restore, we can do poke 781, 96, sys 58251. And some people call this like a screensaver or an Easter egg. I don't think it's really that. It's just a coincidence, a side effect of this print routine. Another one is that if you type, there's a whole bunch of numbers which C64 BASIC can't handle. Like normally if you type in a number like that, as if it's a basic line number, and if you type in a very large number like this, it's a syntax error because that's too large a line number. But if you type in certain ones like 350-800, actually crashes the computer or does a break because the parser has a bug in it, it can't handle certain numbers. And 9 to the power of 2 should be 81. Commodore BASIC thinks it's 81.00001, but 9 times 9 is correct. So yeah, as far as I can tell, all those quirks and bugs in the original C64 are present here in the C64. And can we sys 64738? Oh, I forgot the cursor color. Oh well. Yeah, so that reset works as well. People also asked if external USB devices work, like modems, printers, external disk drives, Zoom floppy. As far as I know, none of those work. It'd be excellent if they added support for certain hardware, so you could do networking, modem, printer would be fun. I don't know if they'll ever do that. Of all the things that they could spend their development time on, are those worthwhile? I don't know. For some of us, it'd be a lot of fun to play around with. I guess we'll just have to see. People asked if 2 joysticks work, 2-player games. If we just write a little program like peak 56320 and peak 56321 and run that, and it shows the output of the joystick. So if we move the joystick, you see that right hand number is changing. I'll change that to white. And this is actually just like the 64. If you push left, it'll slow down because it's equivalent to pressing the control key on the keyboard. And if you press the fire button, 16 comes off the total. And here's the red-handled stick from the C64 Mini. I'll plug that in while the program's still running. That's not working. It's funny, it is detecting the menu button and working there, but it is not working in BASIC. Okay, I took my memory stick and renamed a file. You go into the menu and select this blank D71, and you see down where it says disk drive blank D71 underscore J1 J2, and I'm hoping that'll fix it. Okay, now that one works. Yes. Okay, so it seems you have to explicitly mount a disk image or other file that has both J1 and J2 to be able to use both joysticks. There's probably a reason for that, but I can't think of it right now. By the way, with that whole adding underscore, there's all kinds of options you can do. AD, J1, J2. It's a bit of a hassle because you have to take the USB stick and stick it in another computer to rename it. But the good thing about this system is that once you've got it working correctly, you're set. On VIC on my Mac, I'm always having to mess around with the settings per program. And as far as I know, there isn't an easy way of configuring that per game, per disk image. Well, so that whole flag system I find pretty helpful. I think it's overall a good idea. So people also asked if there's a warp mode built in. That is to run the emulation faster than normal. As far as I know, no, there isn't. However, under the menu option, there is this C, and you can turn the fast disk access on or off, depending on if you need it for emulation or accuracy. a full warp mode that speeds up everything, including the CPU, the video display, that'd be handy too. Maybe they can add that in a firmware update. Another question was whether my basic optimizations from a previous episode trying to get the highest pitch, if those worked or if they were accurate. So I'll just type in the short program. Oh yeah, I didn't explain that earlier. If you have a line 0 and you want to go to 0, you don't actually have to put a line number afterwards. Just a weird quirk in BASIC. If you're interested in how this works, I did a whole episode about it. I'll put a link in the description below. Okay, and this won't necessarily be a pleasant sound. I'm going to turn down the volume for a moment. Okay, and that pitch was at 231 Hertz, according to my tuner on the previous episode. And we'll turn the volume back up. So 231, 232 Hertz on this. Very close. Pretty good. Now to explore the VIC-20 mode a bit, I had this idea. Could I write a little VIC-20 program on this Commodore 64 side and then load it on the VIC-20 side? So let's give that a try. So the VIC-20 programs, instead of being at 0801, are actually at 1001 when you don't have any RAM expansion. And we're just going to make this little header, which will make this into a runnable program. I don't know if I've ever shown this on my channel before, but this is an interesting thing. We'll get into deeper in another episode. So this is like the stub, or the beginning of the basic stub. This is a 16-bit pointer to the next address in the basic line. And then these 2 bytes are a 16-bit line number. And then this is the token for the basic sys command. And then this is the parameter for the sys command, which is in PETSCI. Upper digit is a 3. Then the bottom digit is just the decimal value. So this is going to be a sys 4109, and then all basic programs should end with 30 bytes. And then you can just write your program, loop, inc, and it's register 900F on the VIC-20 that controls both the border color and the background color. Pretty close equivalent to that C64 program we were running last episode. Okay, so back arrow 3 to assemble, just to make sure it's good. And then we want to attach a different disk. So we'll go media access. And I made this little disk just called VIC-20. Press fire on it, but don't launch it. And now back arrow 5 assembles to disk. And we'll just call that something like VIC-1. Okay, and back arrow asterisk to make sure it's there on the disk. Okay, so we've assembled our VIC-20 program to that disk image. We'll switch over to computer mode, VIC-20. And now we'll go in and launch that VIC-20 program. There it is. So yay, cross-assembly on the C64. That's ugly and glitchy because not only is it changing the border color, it's changing the background color and toggling the invert bit that the VIC-20 has. Press stop, restore to see the program, and now we can list it. And so you can see that that line number that we input is actually this year, 2019. And there's the sys command 4109. So that's the little program we wrote. Okay, let's take a quick look here at Carousel Mode. Almost all the games on the C64 are Commodore 64 games. It only includes 2 VIC-20 programs. And one of them is called Grid Runner. Where is that? There it is. VIC-20. So we'll launch it here. I'm not very good at this game. And the other one is this Psychedelia, also by Jeff Minter. It's not an actual game. It's more of a light demo that you can play around with. Only 2 programs, but don't get too hung up on that because there's, of course, all kinds of VIC-20 programs you can download from the internet and give a try. So here in this folder called VIC Boot, there'll be a link to download all these. So all these, you can boot the VIC-20 into all these various modes. So if you want to have a 0K, well, that is no expansion memory, 3K, 8K, 16. These are all the common configurations. So I made a D64 for each of those. And you can see the flag _MV forces the C64 into VIC-20 mode. Now, you might ask yourself, why don't you just always run the VIC-20 in the maximum, which here is 35K? Okay, the reason for that is that VIC-20 games, somewhat confusingly, have different requirements, and each program makes its own assumptions about what memory you have, because the VIC actually reconfigures where certain things are, like the start of basic and screen memory, depending on how much extra RAM you have. It can get pretty confusing, so I just want to stress that if you're new to the VIC-20, don't just set it to 32, 35K of RAM and expect everything to work. Each program has its own setting that you may have to read the documentation to find out. Okay, so we'll just boot here with like an 8K. Okay, so you see how this is 8K expansion. Add that to the default 3K or 3.5K, and that's how you come up with that many bytes. On these disk images, I just wrote this little program called boot. And all it does is a sys64802, which is the equivalent on the VIC of 64738. And that just resets the computer and gets it to a good default mode. If you don't add that program, then the VIC displays an error about file not found, and it has a run readiness buffer that as soon as you do try to do something, run gets typed on the screen. It's pretty annoying. So that's why I did that little sys thing. So I hope you find those memory configuration files helpful. Now, one thing I noticed about how the C64 handles this, for example, here in the 16K, you notice the _MV B1 B2, that means enable both block 1 and 2, which are 8K each for a total of 16K. But once you've launched that, okay, there we got 16 plus the default 3.5K. But if you choose a different disk image, like say I just press the fire button to choose it, and then I press the back menu, you'd think that you just swap disks and nothing else would happen. But actually, the C64 uses those extra flags immediately and reconfigures the emulator. So we've gone from a 16K expansion actually down to a 0K expansion, even though we didn't launch. This is, I don't know if this is like a bug or not. It's not how I expect it to behave. So now if I try to load the disk directory, it actually messes up. It kind of crashes, even though that disk image is good and is in there. And that's because the VIC memory system has been partly reconfigured, but the computer didn't restart. So it seems to me that whenever you change disk images, even if you don't boot them, the VIC-20 memory bank system gets reconfigured. It's an odd choice, but it's probably necessary for some of the flags. So if they're going to do a firmware update, I'd recommend that they ignore the B flags, B0 and so on. You can see them all active here. B0, 1, 2, 3, and 5. By the way, bank 4 is like a ROM bank. That's why B4 isn't a valid flag. Maybe when you insert, when you change disks but don't boot them, the C64 should ignore those B flags in a firmware update. That's what I'd suggest, as it's a pretty buggy behavior. So just to try a few other things, like here's VIC-Splatform, and that's just a PRG file. I'm going to launch that with B. Okay, and this is a VIC-20 game that I wrote quite a while ago, 2007, based on a Commodore 64 game I wrote back in 2002. Maybe we'll take a look at the source code of this sometime, but VIC-20 games don't naturally have smooth scrolling, so there's quite a bit of programming, and they don't have hardware sprites either, so even though it's a very simple looking game, it was actually quite a bit of code to get scrolling smoothly and to emulate that single sprite. Woohoo! Okay, got to phase 2. By the way, that sprite was made by a famous mermaid, who's an amazing artist. I only gave, she was kind enough to help me with my game, but I only gave her 24 bytes of graphic memory, so it's not that impressive. She did a great job with it though. And the music by Anders Carlson, he converted a Commodore 64 song that my friend Steve Judd had made, and he did an amazing job of pouring it to the VIC-20. It's amazing people that I get to work with sometimes, or even on this just a fun project. And just to try a few other things out. Okay, this one has to be loaded comma 8, I believe. If you load comma 8, comma 1, it doesn't get loaded into the correct place in memory. Yeah, because I actually wrote this originally on Commodore 64, and the VIC-20 port was free. This is from a previous episode where I converted an amazing Spectrum game to the VIC-20. You are in a cave. Look. Nothing. N for no. North. You walk. You are in a hall. East. You're in the pit. Look. There's a chest. Open. Chest. Cannot do. Okay, and up here I have a copy of Realms of Quest with all the configuration needed. Turn on all the banks for 35K. So let's try launching that. This is an RPG by my friend Ghislain Dubois. He worked for years making this amazing VIC-20 game. Probably the hugest VIC-20 game ever made. We'll go here, quick start. And move. And there we go. A huge RPG, which I think still has physical copies available for sale. Okay, but how about programming in VIC-20 mode? Here we got the Super Expander cartridge, and I'll launch that one. Had to enable Bank 0 on it. Okay, so it's got 3K of RAM expansion in it. And we'll attach this plot disk I have here. Right. Plot 3B. And we'll run that. So this is using the Super Expander cartridge. So various expansion cartridges do work fine on the C64. This one adds extra pseudo high-res plotting commands and some music commands to VIC-20 Basic. We press stop restore, and we can list that program. And you see here, this isn't included in regular VIC-20 Basic, like graphic and this draw command. So this is from a previous episode as well. Basically, I was just going through all the various VIC-20 things I've been involved with and showing that they work fine on this. And quite a few people asked, why just the VIC-20 mode? Why not a PET mode? Here's my VIC-20, and the keyboard is exactly the same as on the Commodore 64. While on the very similar looking Commodore 16, it has the same key layout, but the mappings are very different, while the VIC-20 and C64 are exactly the same. So this has both a stop key and an escape key up here on the C16. Bizarrely, the cursor keys are up in this area here. Pound key down here. Clear home up here on the 16. And the function keys are mapped F1, F2, F3 on the top surface, and then F4, F5. While on the others, it's the odd ones, F1, F3, F5, F7. So you might not think it's a big deal that the mappings are different, but when you actually go to use software and the keys aren't the same as what the software is expecting, it's extremely frustrating. It's a bad user experience. So, I mean, it'd be cool if they added a C16 or +4 mode, but I think the keyboard problem would really detract from it. And the C128 has even more problems because it has a number pad and a bunch of extra keys here, including important ones like choosing the 4080 column, a true caps lock, tab, escape, extra set cursor keys. Again, not very practical. Plus there's the problem with the 80 column output. The Commodore 128 actually has a dual output, simultaneously putting out a 40 column and an 80 column screen that can contain different data. So I don't know how they would do that over HDMI. And people also suggested a PET mode, but again, the PET has a number pad and other different key mappings. Many PET games actually use the number pad as a sort of D-pad controller, with the 4 and 6 being left and right, 8 and 2 being up and down. And can you imagine that being mapped to this horizontal row of keys? That'd be terrible. I think they made the right call, only including a VIC-20 mode. Of course, I would not complain if they add those other modes, but I think the differences in the keyboard are a major obstacle, make it a lot less fun to use those other models of computers, and maybe it would generate all sorts of support trouble for them as well. Alright, thanks for watching. Thanks to my patrons who support this channel. We'll finish today by running a Commodore 64 demo in PAL mode. I'll compare this with a real PAL C64, which I'll capture separately. I'll try running them side by side and we'll see if this works. This is one of my favorite recent demos called Old Men in Used Cars. It's a little glitchy, and that's on purpose, so I don't think that's a problem with the emulation in the C64. Note that, of course, we had to add that _AD flag for the accurate disk drive emulation, as this demo is constantly loading from disk while the demo is running. And it's over 2 disk sides, and yes, on the full-size C64, you can swap between disks very easy just by bringing up that media access menu and pressing the fire button on the disk image that you want, but not launching it, just pressing fire and pressing the menu button to go back to the demo. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.